It's Chris. We're in the beginning of 2023 already. So what do you need to know? What games am I most anticipating coming out this year? That we know about right now. And this is going to be a mix between crowdfunding as well as retail. So I'm going to talk to you very quickly, concisely, precisely about 15 games that are on my radar. Everything from this to this to... whew. So, should they be on your radar? Which ones are going to be of interest to you? No particular order, but we're talking about some heavy hitters on all fronts, all themes, all mechanics, all the time. Let's do this. Now, the beginning of this video, if you watch my crowdfunding one, is going to look very similar, but don't be fooled. We are diverging significantly after the first couple games, but that's just because these first couple games are just so massive. Such massive projects that are going to shake a lot of the foundations of other games out there that you just need to know about them as well. First up, we're going to talk about AEON TRESPASS Odyssey Into the Unknown has just recently announced on update number 98 on their crowdfunding campaign for the original game that there's going to be a new standalone expansion campaigns for AEON TRESPASS Odyssey, Hercules, The Seven Sins sometime in 2023. Because I mean, we don't know when in 2023. I would wager towards the end of 2023, but, you know, that's going to be very interesting because this game is by far and away one of the best games to come out in the last couple of years. When my top games of 2022 comes out later this month, I'll tell you right now, it's on that list. How high on that list? Spoilers, I'm not telling you that much, but there's a reason it's also starting number 1 on this video. If you are looking for Kingdom Death Monster boss battling with a better narrative campaign game that integrates both, this is the preeminent game right now. I have no qualms about telling you. You could have gotten all the cycles, including even 4 and 5, for almost the price you can get Kingdom Death Monster 1.6 right now. And that's not including all the expansions that you have to mix and match, and that's going to make you pay several $1,000s almost for Kingdom Death. It's just better in every single aspect. It is definitely playing off of and building on the shoulders of Kingdom Death Monster, but it's just doing everything better, and I have no qualms about saying that. This is you know, I can get rid of my Kingdom Death Monster game right now. Ignite over there agrees. So that's why it's number 1 on this list. Number 2 on this list is going to be another heavy-hitting plastic-driven, I need a storage solution type of game of Marvel United Multiverse. CMON is going to have it out probably later this month at the latest, I would guess. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the very next 2 weeks, even by the time this video airs. But we haven't seen anything from them since, you know, well before Christmas, Thanksgiving-ish. So they do something about every 8 weeks, 2 months-ish. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that is literally looming because they've been teasing it more on Twitter and they don't tease too far in advance. So expect that anytime soon. Like I said, I literally have a, you know, almost 3 foot tall pile of Marvel United sitting against the wall behind the camera here, and I need a better storage solution. I can't just dump them all out and, you know, sort them all into a big garbage bag. It doesn't work. So that would be my number 1 wish list. But Marvel United Multiverse, it's the what if in a multiverse, all of the different versions of all the different coolest characters that you're hoping for, wishing for, wanting. Give me Age of Apocalypse. If you are in the comment section and you know Age of Apocalypse from the X-Men, you know what I'm talking about. But we're going to see tons of everything. We've already seen Jane Foster's Thor. We've seen Punisher as Daredevil, Punisher as Ghost Rider, things like that. So we're just going to see more and more and more. And the only question is going to be how much exclusive, how much all-in, how much bling. And please, for the love of everything, no more big, massive avatars. I hated Galactus. I hated Cthulhu. No. It's FOMO. It's minuscule gameplay with a massive, ugly heap of plastic sitting in the corner. I don't care how many people get it and hype it prior to the campaign or during the campaign. The answer is always going to be a no. There you go. Number 3 here, Elder Scrolls, the second era. Chip Theory games plus Elder Scrolls. Chip Theory games plus Elder Scrolls. Chip Theory games plus Elder Scrolls. Need I say more? I'm not a huge Elder Scrolls fan. I'm not a huge Chip Theory game fan. Combination of these two is much more than the individual parts. And so that's why I'm super excited on this, because I can see myself going all in on my first ever Chip Theory games. I can't say I'm never tempted by trying to go for a strategist, but I'm not online at those times. I'm not sitting there F5ing. And so, you know what? I'll just get in whenever I get in. but that's going to be the other big one launching in the first quarter of the year. And these are some massive, massive projects that we're talking about already, right? All of these easily triple digits, potentially even 200 plus for each one of them. And how much of your pocketbook, how much of your tabletop space, how much of your time up here can be allocated for these, and that's going to be the biggest device of these. Now, the GameFound page for Chip Theory Games is already up, and there's just a scant amount of information on here. 15,000 people already on the page following, and you get to see a little bit of the skills and the classes and the progressions, and they talk you through a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of fluff, but not a whole lot of actual information. A little bit of a skill tree here that looks very reminiscent of Too Many Bones. So that's going to be sort of what they bring, but can they actually bring the Elder Scrolls feel? I have no idea if they can, but that's also why I'm super hyped about it, because, you know, they don't make bad games. They don't make games always for me, but they don't make bad games. And that's something to be excited about. Ceiling, maybe not as high for you personally as some of the other ones, but basement, a lot higher than a lot of other risky games you can get in on nowadays. So, all three of these games, though, basement already very high, very similar in all of these. And now number 4, we're going to talk over here because, again, I think the basement is incredibly high. My Dwellings is getting jealous sitting on the floor and when I'm talking about it, and that's Dwellings in Space. Space Eldervale? No, this is Andromeda's Edge from Luke Laurie, the designer of Dwellings. And so we're going to see what else happens with this at the end of January, along with all of these other ones like Multiverse, I'm guessing, and another one or two that I'm going to talk about. And so it's just looking like a cool mechanism. Sending your workers out as ships, civilizing places, growing things, tech trees, gathering them all in, battling in some sort of dice-based combat. I have no idea what to expect of this one. I hope that they sort of don't do what they did with Dwellings, sort of having this standard deluxe and super legendary mega deluxe over the top pledge level system that they had previously, but I guarantee the prices will be a lot higher than the, you know, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Goldilocks as well previously that we saw with Dwellings. And so that's just going to be the question, is how much of that? This looks more like a Voidfall for Liege as opposed to what Voidfall was. Like, I love the idea of Voidfall, but I can't play a 2 to 3 hour game as a cooperative game that's that heavy in that way and sense. And so I would be lying to you if I didn't say I was eyeballing Voidfall, you know, kind of wondering if I should ever get it or, you know, potentially give it a shot with Turksy saying it's Spirit Island in space, and Spirit Island's a top 5, top 3, top 2, top game for me of all time. So that's always going to be tempting, but this looks more like something that I could actually digest on the tabletop side of things. And again, GameFound getting a couple of these in terms of Elder Scrolls, getting this one, not getting Simon, not getting Aeon Trespass Odyssey, at least as far as I know. But I mean, we're seeing a lot more of the bigger names going over to GameFound, but are the smaller names going to get the funding? That is really the test point. And that's why Kickstarter is still king. As a side note, I should do a whole video on that separately, but that is number 4. Number 5, again, Huang, Yellow and Yangtze. If case the yellow in the background here isn't, you know, evident of what this is actually representing. We're getting a new version, a re-implementation, a re-theme, redone, whatever you want to call it, version of Knizia's Yellow and Yangtze. And, you know, people are divided, Tigris and Euphrates, Yellow and Yangtze, which one's better, which one's worse, which one do you prefer, how good are these ones versus that one, and Blue Lagoon, and Samurai, and where do those fall in, and, you know, whereas Babylonia, and Babylonia is the most accessible. It's probably my pick over all of them. But I have a copy of Yellow and Yangtze as well back here. And they're going to be plasticizing, I made that up on the spot, hopefully. They're going to be making a miniature version of Yellow and Yangtze, essentially is what this is. And I'm guessing it's going to be a triple-digit price point for, well, Yellow and Yangtze, which you can't get right now for triple digits or less anyway. So I just love my wooden version. Do I need another version? Will there be any more content? What else is going to be involved? How much different is going to be changed? I have no idea. Are we going to get a double-sided board? Are we going to get something else to entice people? Are you going to get a playmat? I mean, those are the things that are going to be wondering. And if it's going to be an over deluxification, how much is it going to be actually worth it? Because especially from a plastic side of things, I feel like many of the gamers who enjoy a game like that, or the other ones that I mentioned, are the heavy plastic miniature crowd in the first place. I don't think there's a huge Venn diagram overlap between those two. So is there? Are there? There's only like 1,500 people following the GameFound page right now at the time of me filming this. So we're going to see what that actually entails and looks like. Number 6, now we're going completely differently. This one is FLOE. This one is coming to crowdfunding as well sometime in the first quarter, but this is going to be from Pika Games. Pika Games, no other games listed on Board Game Geek. So the fact that I'm talking about it really gives me, you know, serious hype, if you will, hopium, right? And so what you're going to be doing here is you have a heroic journey across the iceberg sea as far as it can see. Anyway, the choice is yours. You're going to be a hero. You're going to be utilizing variable player powers, tile placement, area control in this fantasy exploration type game, which gives me more of a thematic vibe of, say, Endless Winter, which you can't see, which is right outside the picture here, rather than your typical fantasy trope. You're going to be navigating, going across area to area, hexes via heroes on sailboats. Natural shapes of the ice and the sea are going to determine the movement, and you build your engine by leveling your character, upgrading your signature weapon, and constructing buildings and powerful magical items. The first player to complete all their sigils by completing challenges is going to be the one that wins. And I think this is really, really something to watch out for. It gives me vibes of Endless Winter in a completely different way, mechanistically speaking, but that same sort of, wow, capturing something in a different way that we haven't seen before. And so that's why it's easily number 6 on this list. Number 7 on this list is going to be something, again, that I have high hopes for, but I'm not sure right out of the box it's going to be necessarily good, and depends a lot like, I'm going to compare it to Marvel Champions, if you will. Marvel Champions, solid game in a core box, but really what they've done over the last 2 years, especially the last year, has really made this game from an average, and people were going, well, I don't think it's nearly as good as Arkham Horror or Lord of the Rings, to, oh wow, this is one of the pillars. This might be surpassing one of the other 2 pillars, depending on how you feel about the Marvel IP, because some people just hate Marvel. I've heard you guys in the comment section. This is Star Wars, the deck building game. And I just wish it was cooperative. I wish it was the old Decipher game, even from Star Wars, the CCG, right? Something along those lines. I just don't get the vibes. I get the vibe of, based on the rules that are out there, it's sort of a combination of maybe like Elder Sign with more of an Ascension vibe. Ascension. I just, you know, it seems like FFG is a little behind, and I'm not sure what they have in store with this, and I do not want to see another Star Wars property canceled. You know, I'm just getting into Legacies. I have a ton of Armada that I'm getting into. Those are the ones that I, you know, really wish had more legs on them already, and they're kind of just being cut off. Star Wars Shatterpoint, and we're not talking about that on this video because that's another put your miniatures together Star Wars Legion-esque. I'm not sure what the difference between Legion and Shatterpoint is going to be anyway, so shove that out of the way. But Star Wars, the deck building game, I look at, hopefully, like Marvel Champions, that we are just getting tons of content going forward on a cyclical basis where it just adds more and more depth, layers, complexity. You can even make the argument of even just something like Marvel Legendary, you know, with Marvel Legendary's evolution as it's gone out too. So that's why it's number 7 on this list. Another one, number 8 on this list, I've had my eye on for a while as well, as one of those lurking crowdfunding games that doesn't quite get the attention, but I think is really going to get the attention just like FLOE when it finally gets released. I think sometime in Q1 again, is Weirdwood Manor. And this one is going to be a different sense of a cooperative game from Grey Ridge Games. We're getting a 1 to 4 player cooperative adventure gameplay with Euro-inspired underpinnings per the Board Game Geek description. You are exploring the Weirdwood Manor, its mysterious and mystical ways and properties of manipulating time as you or even the Fey monsters that are attacking, trying to take over from the enigmatic ruler that you're trying to protect. This time mechanism that's going to change not only or move things forward, but change things in terms of the dynamics between the rooms as you're playing the game itself. Actions themselves are going to change the way of the flow of the time, but if you run out of time and you haven't beaten the monster, you lose. Dice drafting, card play, resource management, location actions with 6 asymmetric heroes, 3 different monsters with 3 different types of mechanisms and different ways that they're going to be offering win and lose conditions. It just speaks as another awesome cooperative experience. Monsters turn, heroes turn. So a little bit of a pandemic vibe there in terms of how things are going back and forth. But the aesthetic of sort of this dark fantasy fairy tale theme really does it for me as well too. And if they can stay away from the heavy plastic use to jack up the price points, I am really interested in this one, and I have been subscribed to the Board Game Geek page now for months, waiting for more information as it slowly trickles out. So stay tuned, and I will let you know as soon as I know more. But that's why it's number 8, because of all of those underpinnings and excitement just based on the description. Speaking of ones with very little information, number 9 here, we have Defenders of the Wild, a strategy game of resistance magic and political intrigue from Out of Order Games. You may know them from Block by Block, the 3rd edition one that recently ran on GameFound. And this is going to be something different where animals are weathering shifting alliances. Imagine it being a Root-esque vibe, only instead of being competitive asymmetric factions, you're all individual asymmetric woodland creatures fighting off the machinations of machines that are trying to terrorize and take over your territory. That's a tongue twister if I don't say so myself. If you know me, this cooperative with a Root theme, overarching, it looks amazing from those aspects. And I love me a hard cooperative game, and I love me some block by block as well. And so this one is going to be a heavy look-see whenever this one does come to crowdfunding, I believe sometime this year as well. I just can't wait to hear more. There's not very much information at all over on Board Game Geek, but as you may know, I mentioned already several times in this video, I'm subscribed to a lot of these pages. So that's how we get some of the information sometimes, just grinding away, folks. Okay, next up, this is going to be an interesting one too. Number 10 here, Bloodstone from Druid City Games. The relaunch is supposed to be something sometime this year, and we're going to see what's been different, right? The issue was the price point and the perceived value. Again, perceived value. People didn't feel like the value that was being offered for the price was consistent with that. Me personally, I criticized the game because I didn't think I wanted a PvP and a PvE game, a player versus player, as well as a player versus environment game. I wanted one or the other. Give me a hard cooperative dungeon boss battler, which it was giving you, or an asymmetric smash 'em up head-to-head skirmish game. And I'm just not sure you can do both of those really, 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 really well, especially when they're thrown in together in terms of development and balance, when you're trying to balance them each within the same game so that there's not too much one way or the other. And so I have no idea what it's going to look like in the final project. We haven't heard really any details from Druid City since it was announced it's going to be sometime this year. And so what's actually going to be different? What's going to look different? I know that they were talking potentially maybe about doing standees. I would love to see a standee version and just drop the miniature version altogether. I mean, I'm looking at Wonderland's War. I much prefer the standees with that one. Whether they're acrylic, whether they're solid cardboard, give me those every day of the week, every night of the week, every afternoon of the week, every evening of the week, instead of gray plastic chunks. And I say that as someone who doesn't own the Wonderland's War plastic either. Next up, we're going to be talking about number 11 here. This one is going to be probably one of the worst named ones on the list because it's so generic and it doesn't offer you a little bit of what it's actually doing. But think of Enos in space, because it's by the same designer, 2 to 5 players, Galactic Renaissance, the second installment of what is coming out as his trilogy, like the Lang trilogy, only this is going to be the political intrigue trilogy. And this is going to be where you're building your team specialist by specialist, unique into your core deck of cards, discovering planets, systems, connecting lost civilizations, expanding your influence with embassies, and just trying to politicize the galaxy the best that you can before the end of the game. Again, details are sketchy. I think Shut Up and Sit Down had a prototype copy on one of their videos about the time of Shucks. Not wearing that shirt. Sorry, I thought I was for a second. But that's the sort of thing that I could see really making a huge wave on the retail side of things being published by Matago. So we're going to see where that one goes. I've got my eye on that one. No release date known for this one. I would assume sometime late in 2023. But regardless, it may be one of the few games that I actually seriously consider getting at retail if it's as good as promised. Speaking of as good as promised, I'm going to go slightly sideways on this one because I'm not quite sure. This is probably the most iffy on the list, and this is Marrakesh, and this is from Queen Games. We have heard very good rumblings. People say that, who are more familiar with Feldians than myself, that this is their favorite Feldian. And with a dropping mechanic that I love, I'm just not sure if I can condense a 2-hour session of this much strategy to my tabletop and enjoy it at the same time. Queen's just been all over the place. I still don't have my copy of Hamburg, which is over like 2 years late or something at that point. I mean, again, not that it's a huge deal, but there's been no mention of how these games are going to be coming to retail, if they're coming to retail, what that's going to look like. They just did a second Kickstarter running basically their supply out because they printed extra, is what it sounded like, because there was nothing new. There was no reason to, nothing. And so I want Marrakesh, but I see myself more likely to trade for it from someone else rather than to buy Queen's prices, which end up being like a good 25% higher at retail at least than their crowdfunding campaigns. I was just looking at Alhambra, the big box second edition, and it's a good like $40 or $50 more almost, it looked like, on the Queen website as it was during the crowdfunding campaign. Like, I understand incentivizing people, but that's also almost de-incentivizing people from getting it at retail, like almost too far of a swing the other way. and Queen has not been forward with a lot of the gameplay. I mean, there's still only a handful of people that have even rated it or commented on it on Board Game Geek, so it's hard to get a good assessment of what does this game flow actually look like, because it's just not still widely available despite it supposedly being out in the wild now for a while. So take that for what you will. And similarly, we're going to stay with retail right here for number 13. And this is going to be the Galileo project, coming from Sorry We Are French. This has been lurking since about the time of Essen this past year, but it hasn't gotten a wide retail release. It's now just starting to become available at the beginning of the year here. And I think this really has another interesting premise, because it's a different sort of spacefaring game with drafting and set collection. And I love me some asymmetric set collections where you are corporations that are trying to settle satellites by acquiring robots, recruiting experts, technologies, and superstructures. Standalone game, combo engine building. I just love the idea of that style of game. And the comments and the ratings so far are relatively receptive on Board Game Geek. And this is one where I've had my heavy eye on, and I don't say that a lot if you watch the channel from a retail side of things. So I can see this being a nice sleeper hit of the first half of 2023 if you're interested in anything like that. Now, 14 and 15 are going to be slightly different here. I'm going out on a limb with these. 14, I saw it announced on Board Game Geek, and it's probably, and this is my fear, and this is why it's a little bit divisive, a 50-minute playtime, the Lord of the Rings Adventure to Mount Doom. It looks like it's a very light roll and move. And I can't tell that for certain. They talk about from Cosmos, there's going to be more to it than that. And you're going to have to choose, which character is going to be correlating to which color die. And you're going to have to choose when and where and how and mitigating threats along the way. But I just don't know. 1 to 4 players, Frodo's journey to destroy the One Ring to Mount Doom. I just don't know. I may just have to pick it up just to make sure that this isn't something, because that's really, again, for all the Lord of the Rings that we have, this is something that we really don't have since one of the other original cooperative games, which, was out like 20 years ago. That's sort of got the 2 or 3 expansions like Sauron and Foes. And I forget the other Lord of the Rings cooperative game that really hasn't apparently stood the test of time that well. So this one is going to be number 14 that I'm going to keep my eye on, but I could see myself easily passing because it just might be too light. I'm going to go a little outside of my comfort zone here for number 15. I think it's going to make waves. Boom. It's not a big fan. Didn't have any interest in Endeavor, The Age of Sail. This is Endeavor, though, Deep Sea. I think the thematic use is much more appealing to me, just like Sleeping Gods, Distant Skies over Sleeping Gods. There's just something different about it that catches my eye, that catches my interest more so. And it's by the local people in Grand Gamers Guild in combination with Burnt Island Games. Independent Research Institute, goal of developing sustainable projects under the sea with the balance of marine life. Recruiting experts, training them, new locations, researching critical ecological papers. I mean, who doesn't want to write ecological papers during a game? I mean, that is riveting stuff right there, folks. But it's going to be a new era of nautical discovery using more of a streamlined version of the rules from Age of Sail. So that's kind of why I want to give it a good look over. Sort of something like Assault on Doomrock that I never really give a chance for, and now that I actually saw what it was up close, it seriously piqued my interest, and that is why I have to talk about it and why it made the cut at the end of this list as number 15. So there you go, 15 games. Quickly, summary, snapshot, quick judgment and thoughts behind it. Those are the big ones that are on my radar right now. Obviously, I could have made this probably 20 or 30 games even, but those are the ones that stood out on first glance, and that's why we got to talk about them. And we're going to have fun talking about other stuff that comes out along the way between now and inevitably some of these releases and just other ones that are just going to pop up out of nowhere that are going to demand our attention, hype, and interest as well. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. We know what's on your radar for 2023, and help me sub and get to 10,000 by the end of the year. I hope by the end of the year. Well, whatever. Who cares? Have a great day. Hopefully your year's starting off great. See you around.